The explosions lit up the darkness of space like dying stars. Admiral Jake Morrison gripped the arms of his command chair as another human ship vanished from his tactical display. That made 63 vessels lost in the last 4 hours. He had started the battle with 80 ships. Now, only 17 remained. "Admiral, the defensive line is collapsing," Commander Ryan Blake reported from the communications station. His young face was pale with exhaustion. They had been fighting for 2 days straight without rest. Morrison stared at the main screen. The Korvath fleet stretched across the void like a swarm of metal locusts. Their ships numbered in the thousands. Each one bristled with weapons that could tear through human armor like paper. For 12 years, humanity had fought these aliens. For 12 years, they had been losing. "Order all ships to fall back to Earth," Morrison said quietly. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. "We cannot hold this position." The bridge crew worked in silence. Everyone knew what this meant. Neptune's Gate was humanity's last defensive position before Earth itself. If they abandoned it, the enemy would have a clear path to their homeworld. Captain Lisa Hartford watched the retreat order flash across her screens aboard Sentinel-7. The defense station hung in space like a wounded giant. Half of its weapons were offline. Life support was failing in 3 sections. She had lost 200 crew members in the fighting. "Ma'am, we're receiving the fallback order," her tactical officer said. "Acknowledged," Lisa replied. She looked at the enemy fleet advancing toward them. "Prepare the station for evacuation. We'll set the reactor to overload and take as many of them with us as we can." Her crew nodded. There were no complaints. Everyone knew they were going to die. The only question was how many enemies they could kill first. On Earth, the government buildings were in chaos. Ambassador Claire Donovan stood in the emergency command center, watching the holographic display show their fleet's retreat. Around her, politicians argued and shouted. Some demanded they fight to the last ship. Others wanted to surrender immediately. "Silence," General Ben Carter's voice cut through the noise. The old soldier stood ramrod straight despite his 70 years. "We have 72 hours before the Korvath reach Earth. They've sent their terms. Unconditional surrender or they'll bombard our cities from orbit." "We have no choice," one of the council members said. "We must accept." "There's always a choice," Carter replied. His eyes held a strange glint. "The Exodus Protocol. That's a myth," another politician shouted. "A fairy tale to keep up morale. There is no secret fleet. There is no miracle coming." Carter said nothing more. But Claire noticed he didn't deny it either. She had heard the rumors. 30 years ago, thousands of people had vanished. Engineers, scientists, military officers. The government had claimed they died in a mining accident. But some people whispered they had been sent somewhere else. Somewhere, to build something. She pushed the thought away. Even if the rumors were true, it was too late now. In orbit, Morrison's flagship limped toward Earth. The bridge suddenly filled with an alert sound. Lieutenant Kevin Price, at the communications station, jumped in his seat. "Admiral, I'm picking up something strange," Kevin said. "Energy signatures from beyond the Kuiper Belt. Multiple contacts, moving fast." "Korvath reinforcements?" Morrison asked tiredly. "I don't think so, sir. The signatures don't match anything in our database. They're huge, whatever they are." Morrison felt a flutter of something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. But he crushed it immediately. Hope was dangerous. Hope got people killed. "Keep monitoring," he ordered. "And send this message on all channels. Earth fleet in full retreat. Any human ships in the system, fall back to Earth immediately." His hands moved across his console, typing a message to Earth Command. As he worked, another alert chimed. An encrypted signal, buried in the static of the battle. Morrison frowned and isolated it. The message was short. "The fleet awakens. Hold the line." Morrison stared at the words. His heart began to pound. Could it be true? After all these years? Admiral, Blake asked, noticing his commander's expression. Nothing, Morrison lied. Just interference from the battle. But his mind raced. If there was even a chance, even the smallest possibility, he had to buy time. He opened a channel to the Korvath High Commander, Thaxmar. The alien's face appeared on the screen. Thaxmar looked almost human, except for the gray skin and the extra set of eyes on his forehead. His mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Admiral Morrison, Thaxmar said in perfect English. Have you come to beg? I've come to discuss terms. Morrison replied, keeping his voice steady. Your ultimatum gives us 72 hours. I'm requesting an extension. 96 hours. Our government needs time to prepare the surrender documents properly. Thaxmar laughed. You think I'm a fool? You want time to prepare defenses. What defenses? Morrison gestured at the tactical display. You've destroyed our fleet. Our stations are falling. We're beaten. But our government is in chaos. Give us 4 days to accept the inevitable with dignity. Let us surrender properly, not as a panicked mob. The alien considered this. 78 hours. Not a moment more. If your surrender is not complete by then, we begin the bombardment. And Admiral, thank you for 12 years of entertainment. Your species fought well. But fighting well and winning are not the same thing. The transmission ended. Morrison sat back in his chair. 78 hours. If help was really coming, would it be enough time? Captain Hartford's station exploded 6 hours later, taking 40 Korvath ships with it. She and her crew died quickly. On Earth, the evacuation of essential personnel began. Millions looked to the sky, wondering if they would live to see another sunrise. And in the darkness beyond Neptune, 300 massive ships moved toward Earth. Their crews had trained for 30 years for this moment. The Dreadnought fleet was coming home. But would they arrive in time? Dr. Amy Richards floated in the zero-gravity lab of Horizon 9, staring at her computer screens with disbelief. The numbers made no sense. The energy readings were impossible. Yet there they were, clear as day on her instruments. Run the analysis again, she told her assistant. Check for equipment malfunction. I've run it 5 times already, Doctor, he replied. The readings are accurate. Whatever is out there, it's putting out energy signatures equivalent to a small star. Multiple signatures, actually. I count over 200 distinct sources. Amy pushed herself toward the communications panel. Her hands shook slightly as she opened a channel to Earth Command. This discovery was too important to delay, even though she knew how crazy it would sound. On Morrison's flagship, the bridge crew worked around the clock. Exhaustion made their movements slow and clumsy. Commander Ryan Blake had been awake for 36 hours. His eyes burned and his head pounded. But he couldn't rest. Every few minutes, he checked the sensors, watching for the enemy's advance. Commander, incoming transmission from Horizon 9, Kevin Price said. Dr. Richards wants to speak with the Admiral immediately. She says it's urgent. Blake looked at Morrison, who nodded. The Admiral looked 10 years older than he had at the start of the battle. Gray stubble covered his jaw, and dark circles surrounded his eyes. Amy's face appeared on the screen. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy sources approaching from the outer system. They're moving at incredible speeds. Whatever they are, they'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 34 hours. Could they be Korvath? Morrison asked. No, sir. The energy signatures are completely different. I've compared them to every known ship type in the database. There are no matches. Admiral, these readings suggest technology far beyond anything either humanity or the Korvath possess. Morrison felt his pulse quicken. Doctor, send me everything you have, and keep this information classified. Tell no one else. After the transmission ended, Blake moved closer to the Admiral. Sir, what if it's the fleet? The one from the rumors? Don't. Morrison said sharply. Don't let yourself hope. Hope is a luxury we can't afford. But privately, Morrison allowed himself to wonder. The encrypted messages had continued. Each one said the same thing. Hold on. We're coming. Could it really be true? On Earth, Ashley Webb worked in the ruins of a damaged library. The young engineer had been searching through old records for days. Ever since she heard General Carter mention the Exodus Protocol, most of the files were destroyed or corrupted, but she was patient. Finally, she found something. A shipping manifest from 30 years ago, thousands of tons of raw materials, steel, titanium, rare earth metals, all shipped to a colony that officially didn't exist. She cross-referenced the names of people who had supposedly died in the mining accident. Engineers, ship designers, weapons specialists, military tacticians. Ashley's heart raced as she pieced it together. The government had lied. Those people hadn't died. They had been sent away. Sent to build something. But what? And where? She copied the files and rushed to find General Carter. If this information was real, it might change everything. Lieutenant Kevin Price sat at his station, headphones clamped over his ears. He filtered through layers of static and interference, searching for more of those mysterious encrypted messages. Then he heard something new. Not a message, but a sound. A deep, rhythmic pulse, like the beating of a massive heart. Commander Blake, I'm picking up something strange, Kevin said. It's like a propulsion system, but the power output is enormous. It's not just one source. There are hundreds of them, all moving in formation. Blake studied the data streaming across his screen. Ships, he breathed. They're ships. Huge ones. Aska, 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 Aska. Morrison appeared at their shoulders. Can you identify them? No, sir, but Admiral, look at their trajectory. They're heading straight for Earth. And their ETA matches Dr. Richards' calculations exactly. Morrison made a decision. Send a message to the approaching fleet. Tight beam. Encrypted. Ask them to identify themselves. They waited. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then a response came through. The voice was human, speaking with a crisp military accent. Earth Fleet? This is Terran Dreadnought Fleet. Fleet Admiral Daniel Cross commanding. We are coming home. Hold your position. Help is on the way. The bridge exploded in cheers. Grown men and women wept openly. Blake grabbed Morrison's hand and shook it hard. Even the Admiral's eyes were wet. How many ships? Morrison asked when the celebration died down. Kevin's fingers flew over his controls. According to the energy signatures, 300 capital ships, sir. Maybe more. They're larger than anything we've ever built. End of the mentor. End of the one. End of the mentor. End of the mentor. Morrison sat down heavily in his command chair. 300 ships. For 12 years, they had been fighting with outdated vessels and dwindling resources. And all that time, somewhere out there, humanity had been building an armada in secret. He thought about all the people who had died, all the colonies that had fallen, all the desperate battles they had fought, always retreating, always losing. And help had been coming all along. They just had to survive long enough to see it arrive. Send a message to all human forces, Morrison ordered. His voice was strong now, filled with new energy. Tell them the cavalry is coming. Tell them we just need to hold on for 30 more hours. Tell them that Earth's children are coming home. Across the solar system, the message spread. On damaged ships and failing stations, exhausted crews found new strength. On Earth, people stopped their panicked evacuation and looked to the stars with hope. The Korvath fleet detected the approaching signatures too. Thaxmar studied the reports with growing concern. His intelligence officers couldn't identify the source. The energy readings suggested something massive, but there were no visual confirmations yet. Could the humans have hidden reserves? Impossible. The Korvath had watched Earth for years before attacking. They knew humanity's capabilities. They had planned accordingly. Whatever they are, they're too late, Thaxmar told his staff. We'll crush Earth before they arrive. Order the fleet to advance immediately. Maximum speed. We attack in 20 hours. But even as he gave the order, Thaxmar felt uneasy. He had learned to respect human cunning during the war. They were weaker and less advanced, but they were clever. Dangerously clever. What if this was a trap? What if the humans had been hiding something all along? He shook off the thought. It didn't matter. Even if Earth had reinforcements, they would be too few and too late. The Korvath Dominion would crush them, just as it had crushed every other species that stood in its way. In the depths of space, the Dreadnought fleet accelerated. Admiral Cross stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the countdown timer. 30 years of preparation. 30 years of building, training, perfecting. 300 ships filled with humanity's best technology. Its finest weapons. Its most advanced systems. All ships report ready, Admiral. His tactical officer reported. Good, Cross replied. Set condition 1 throughout the fleet. We're going to war. The Korvath armada moved through space like a dark tide. Thousands of warships advanced on Earth in perfect formation. On the bridges of human vessels, crews watched their sensors and prayed. Morrison's 17 surviving ships formed a thin line between the enemy and their homeworld. It was a pathetic defense, and everyone knew it. Enemy fleet will be in weapons range in 2 hours, Blake reported. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly. Morrison checked the chronometer. The Dreadnought fleet was still 4 hours away. They wouldn't make it in time. He made a decision that he knew would cost lives. All ships, advance to meet the enemy, Morrison ordered. We'll buy as much time as we can. The human ships moved forward. 17 vessels against thousands. It was suicide. But if they could delay the Korvath, even by a few minutes, it might be enough. Thaxmar watched the human ships approach and laughed. They're attacking. With 17 ships? These humans are insane. He turned to his weapons officer. Destroy them quickly. I want to be in Earth orbit before nightfall. The two fleets closed on each other. Morrison's ships opened fire first, their missiles streaking through the void. The Korvath shields absorbed the attacks easily. Return. Fire lit up space. One human ship exploded immediately. Then another. All power to forward shields, Morrison commanded. Ram them if you have to. Just keep them busy. His flagship shuddered as Korvath weapons hammered its hull. Alarms screamed. Sections began to decompress. But Morrison kept his ship on course, firing every weapon that still functioned. Then space itself seemed to tear apart. A massive rift opened behind the human line. Reality twisted and distorted. Energy readings spiked off the scale. Kevin Price's instruments went crazy, unable to process what they were detecting. The first Dreadnought emerged from the rift. It was enormous, twice the size of any ship humanity had ever built. Its hull was sleek and dark, covered in weapons systems. As it entered normal space, its shields flared to life, creating a shimmering barrier around it. Then another appeared. And another. They kept coming, one after another, until 300 massive warships filled the space around Earth. The Dreadnoughts moved into formation with mechanical precision, their size making Morrison's flagship look like a child's toy. A transmission cut through all frequencies. The voice was calm and confident. This is Fleet Admiral Daniel Cross of the Terran Dreadnought Fleet. Earth's children have come home. All human forces, fall back immediately. We have the line now. Morrison felt tears running down his face. Around him, his bridge crew cheered and sobbed. They had done it. They had held on long enough. All ships, retreat to Earth orbit, Morrison ordered. Let them handle it now. The dreadnoughts moved forward. At their head was the Retribution, flagship of the fleet. Captain Nicole Foster stood on its bridge, her eyes fixed on the Korvath armada. She had trained 30 years for this moment. Every simulation, every drill, every practice run had led to this. All weapons stations report ready, said Chris Martinez from the tactical console. Shields at maximum. All fighter squadrons prepared to launch. Good, Nicole replied. Open fire. The Retribution's main guns erupted. Particle beams, the color of blue lightning, lanced across space. They struck a Korvath battleship and punched straight through its shields as if they weren't there. The enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire. The other dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously. 300 capital ships unleashed their weapons at once. The darkness of space became a storm of energy and explosions. Korvath vessels died by the dozens, their technology no match for humanity's secret weapons. On the Korvath flagship, Thaxmar stared in horror at his tactical display. In the first 30 seconds of fighting, he had lost 50 ships. His sensors were going mad, unable to properly analyze the enemy vessels. Nothing in the Korvath database matched these ships. Return fire, he screamed. All weapons. Target those lead ships, the Korvath fleet responded. Thousands of weapons firing at once. But the dreadnought's shields held. The massive barriers absorbed hit after hit, barely flickering. Meanwhile, the human ships continued their systematic destruction of the enemy fleet. Lieutenant Beth Harper launched her fighter from the Retribution's bay. Around her, hundreds of other fighters streamed from the dreadnoughts. These weren't like the old human fighters. They were faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with AI assistance systems that made every pilot fight like an ace. All fighters, this is Harper, she transmitted. Target the enemy carriers. Take out their launch bays. Don't let them get their fighters into space. Her squadron dove into the Korvath formation. The enemy tried to track them, but the human fighters were too fast. Harper's targeting computer locked onto a carrier's launch bay. She fired, and her missiles struck true. Secondary explosions rippled through the enemy ship. On the Retribution, Chris Martinez coordinated the assault. His screens showed the entire battlefield. The dreadnoughts were working in groups, each formation targeting specific sections of the Korvath fleet. It was like watching a machine work. Efficient, precise, unstoppable. Korvath command ship identified, Chris reported. It's the big one in the center of their formation. The Obliterator. Nicole studied the massive enemy vessel. It was Thaxmar's flagship, heavily armed and protected by layers of smaller ships. Mark it as priority target. We'll deal with it after we thin out their screening forces. The battle continued. The Korvath, despite their numbers, were being systematically destroyed. Their weapons couldn't penetrate the dreadnought's shields. Their ships couldn't outrun the human fighters. And their tactics, which had worked perfectly against the old Earth fleet, were useless against Admiral Cross's forces. Thaxmar realized the terrible truth. The humans had been hiding their strength all along. For 12 years, they had fought with outdated ships and limited resources. They had retreated, planet after planet, colony after colony. And all that time, they had been building this fleet in secret. The Korvath had been fighting humanity's past, not its present. Retreat, Thaxmar ordered. All ships, fall back to the rally point. But the dreadnoughts didn't let them go. They pursued, their faster engines allowing them to catch fleeing Korvath vessels. Commander Matt Sullivan aboard the Retribution smiled grimly as he watched enemy ships try to escape. They're running, he said. Let them run, Nicole replied. Hunt them down, all of them. No mercy, not after what they did to our colonies. Back on Morrison's flagship, the Admiral watched the battle through his damaged sensors. The Korvath fleet, which had seemed so unstoppable just hours ago, was breaking apart. The dreadnoughts moved through them like wolves through sheep. Admiral, incoming transmission from Fleet Admiral Cross, Kevin said. Cross's face appeared on the screen. He was an older man with iron-gray hair and sharp eyes. Admiral Morrison, I'm Daniel Cross. I apologize for the delayed arrival. Delayed? Morrison laughed, almost hysterical. Admiral, you're right on time. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank the people who've been working for 30 years to build this fleet, Cross replied. Thank the thousands who gave up their lives on Earth to work in secret. Thank your own crews for holding the line when everything seemed lost. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a war to finish. The transmission ended. Morrison sat back and watched as the Dreadnought fleet continued its assault. After 12 years of defeat, humanity was finally winning. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Korvath fleet, once numbering in the thousands, was reduced to scattered groups of ships trying desperately to escape. The Dreadnoughts hunted them methodically, working in coordinated teams that gave the enemy no chance to regroup. Commander Matt Sullivan stood beside Captain Foster on the Retribution's bridge. His console showed the tactical situation across the entire solar system. The Korvath were broken, running in every direction. But the human fleet was faster. Group 7 has eliminated the enemy forces near Jupiter, Matt reported. Group 12 is mopping up stragglers near Mars. The main Korvath formation has collapsed completely. What about the Obliterator? Nicole asked. Still in the fight, Captain. Thaxmar has pulled back with his strongest ships. He's formed a defensive sphere around his flagship. About 200 vessels still protecting him. Nicole studied the tactical plot. The Korvath commander was smart. He had positioned himself near a dense asteroid field, using the rocks as cover. His remaining ships formed layers of defense, making any direct attack costly. Send word to Admiral Cross, Nicole said. Request permission to engage the Obliterator with Strike Force Alpha. Minutes later, Cross's response came through. Permission granted. 6 dreadnoughts detaching to support. Retribution will lead the assault. Cross out. Nicole smiled. All hands. This is the captain. We're going after Thaxmar. Battle stations. This ends today. Major Laura Kim assembled her Marines in the Retribution's hangar bay. 200 soldiers in powered armor suits stood at attention. These weren't the bulky, slow armor of the old days. The new suits were sleek and deadly, enhancing strength and speed while providing heavy protection. Listen up, Laura said. The plan is simple. We're going to punch through to the Obliterator. Once we're in range, we board. Our mission is to capture or kill Thaxmar and secure the ship's command deck. Intelligence says there are over 5,000 Korvath troops on that ship. We're going in with 200. One of her sergeants grinned. So we're outnumbered, just like old times. The Marines laughed. Laura smiled too. These soldiers had trained for 3 decades. They were the best humanity had ever produced. The Korvath were about to learn what it meant to face human Marines at their peak. In the Retribution's engine room, Sam Rodriguez worked frantically. The chief engineer had been running the ship's systems at maximum capacity for hours. The fusion reactors were stable, but he was pushing them harder than they were designed to go. Captain wants more power to the forward shields, his assistant said. Of course she does, Sam muttered. He adjusted the power distribution, pulling energy from non-essential systems. Tell the captain she'll have her shields. But if we take many more hits, I can't promise anything. The Retribution can take it, his assistant said confidently. I know she can, Sam replied, patting the wall affectionately. But that doesn't mean I don't worry. On the bridge, Emma Grant studied the intelligence data flowing in from across the battlefield. As the fleet's intelligence officer, her job was to track enemy movements and predict their strategies. Right now, she was focused on one thing: finding Thaxmar's escape route. Captain, I've analyzed the Korvath retreat patterns, Emma said. Thaxmar is positioning himself near the asteroid field, but look at his orientation. He's pointed toward the outer system. I think he's planning to run for deep space. Nicole considered this. If he escapes, he could regroup, bring reinforcements. We need to cut off that route. I recommend positioning Group 9 behind the asteroid field, Emma suggested. Create a pincer movement. He'll be trapped. Good thinking. Make it happen. The 6 dreadnoughts assigned to Strike Force Alpha moved into position. Along with the Retribution, there was the Vengeance, the Defiance, the Sovereign, the Justice, and the Liberty. Each one was a floating fortress, bristling with weapons. All ships report ready, Matt announced. We can begin the assault on your order, Captain. Begin, Nicole said simply. The 6 ships accelerated toward the Korvath defensive formation. The enemy opened fire immediately. Space filled with weapons fire. The dreadnoughts' shields flared as they absorbed the hits, but they didn't slow down. Return fire, Nicole ordered. Target their outer defensive ring. Clear us a path. The Retribution's guns spoke. Particle beams cut through the darkness, striking Korvath ships with devastating accuracy. The other dreadnoughts added their fire. Enemy vessels exploded one after another. Enemy formation is contracting, Chris Martinez reported. They're pulling tighter around the obliterator. Let them. It just makes them easier targets. The battle became a slugging match. The Korvath threw everything they had at the human ships. For the first time, the dreadnoughts' shields began to weaken under the sustained assault. Damage reports started coming in. The Liberty took a hit that knocked out its main weapons. The Justice reported hull breaches on 3 decks, but the humans pressed on. Slowly, methodically, they ground through the Korvath defenses. Ships died on both sides, but the dreadnoughts were winning. Thaxmar watched his fleet die around him. Every few seconds, another ship vanished from his tactical display. The humans were unstoppable. Their ships were too strong, their weapons too powerful, their tactics too precise. High Commander, we must retreat, his second-in-command urged. If we stay, we'll be destroyed. No, Thaxmar growled. The Korvath Dominion does not run. We've conquered 50 species. We will not be defeated by these primitive apes. But High Commander, order all remaining ships to ram the human vessels. If we're going to die, we'll take them with us. It was a desperate move. The Korvath ships broke formation and charged at the dreadnoughts, intent on crashing into them. But the human ships were ready. Point defense systems came online, shredding the approaching vessels before they could reach their targets. All ships, concentrate fire on the obliterator, Nicole commanded. Take down its shields. 6 dreadnoughts focused their weapons on a single target. The obliterator's shields blazed with energy, trying to absorb the assault. For a moment, they held. Then they failed. The massive Korvath flagship was suddenly vulnerable. Nicole didn't hesitate. Laura's Marines launched from the Retribution's bay in armored boarding pods. The small craft shot across space, dodging enemy fire. Several pods were destroyed, but most made it through. They crashed into the obliterator's hull and cut their way inside. The Marines poured into the Korvath ship. The corridor fighting was brutal. The Korvath fought with desperation, but human weapons were superior. The powered armor made each Marine nearly unstoppable. Laura's squad fought their way toward the command deck, leaving dead aliens in their wake. On the Retribution's bridge, Nicole watched the boarding operation through the Marines' helmet cameras. All ships, maintain fire on the obliterator. Disable its engines. It's not going anywhere. Thaxmar heard the explosions getting closer. Human Marines were inside his ship. His personal guard formed a defensive line outside the command deck. But he knew it wouldn't be enough. He had lost. After 12 years of victory, he had lost to a species he had considered weak and primitive. The command deck doors exploded inward. Major Kim stepped through, her armor scarred from battle. She pointed her weapon at Thaxmar. "It's over," she said. Thaxmar looked at the human soldier. "How?" he asked. "How did you hide this fleet from us?" "We didn't hide it," Laura replied. "We built it while you were busy destroying our old ships. You defeated humanity's past, but you never knew what we were building for the future. Thaxmar laughed bitterly. Clever apes. You sacrificed thousands to hide your true strength. We did what we had to do to survive, Laura said. Now, you're under arrest for war crimes against humanity. You're coming with me. The Battle of Earth was over. The Korvath fleet was destroyed. Thaxmar was captured. After 12 years of war and defeat, humanity had won. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Sentinel Station. Below him, Earth rotated peacefully. Above, the Dreadnought fleet patrolled in perfect formation. The war was over, but the world had changed forever. A notification chimed. Morrison turned to see Fleet Admiral Daniel Cross entering the deck. The two men shook hands, warmly. They had become friends in the aftermath of the battle. Two soldiers who had seen humanity at its worst and best. I came to say goodbye, Morrison said. I'm officially retiring next week. You've earned it. Cross replied. 12 years of hell, and you held the line when it mattered most. Earth owes you everything. Morrison shook his head. I just did my job. You're the one who saved us. Where were you all those years? What was it like? Building that fleet in secret. Cross gazed out at the stars. We were in a system called Haven, about 30 light years from here. The government set it up 40 years ago as a backup plan. After the first alien contact went badly, they realized Earth needed insurance. So they sent the best people they could find. Engineers, scientists, military personnel, families too. We built a colony and a massive shipyard. 30 years, Morrison said quietly. You gave up your whole lives. Quote. You gave up your whole lives. We did. We couldn't contact Earth. Couldn't visit. We trained our children to fight a war they'd never seen. We built ships using technology that hadn't been invented when we left. It was hard. But we knew Earth was counting on us. Morrison looked at the dreadnoughts patrolling overhead. It was worth it. You saved billions of lives. We saved humanity. Cross corrected. And now, we need to make sure this never happens again. Across the solar system, the transformation of human space was well underway. Captain Nicole Foster stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching construction crews work on a new defensive platform. Everywhere she looked, humanity was building. Not just defenses, but infrastructure, factories, shipyards. Commander Matt Sullivan joined her. Admiral Cross wants the fleet divided into 3 groups. 1 to defend Earth, 1 to patrol our colonies, and 1 to hunt down remaining Korvath forces. Makes sense, Nicole said. The Korvath Empire is collapsing, but there are still warlords and remnants out there. We need to make sure they can't threaten us again. Captain, do you ever think about it? About how close we came to losing? Nicole nodded. Every day. But we didn't lose. We survived. And now, we're going to make sure no one can do this to us again. On Earth, Ambassador Kate Brennan prepared for the most important speech of her life. In 1 hour, she would address the Galactic Council for the first time in 12 years. The same council that had ignored humanity's pleas for help when the Korvath invaded. The same species that had stood by while human colonies burned. Her assistant reviewed the speech one last time. Are you sure about this, Ambassador? These words are going to make a lot of people angry. Good, Kate said firmly. They should be angry. At themselves. For abandoning us when we needed them. The Galactic Council met in a massive space station at the edge of neutral territory. Representatives from 40 different species gathered in the Great Hall. Kate stood at the human podium, looking at the faces that had turned away from Earth's suffering. Honored Council, she began. 12 years ago, humanity came before you. We asked for help against the Korvath invasion. We showed you evidence of war crimes, of genocide, of the systematic destruction of our colonies. We begged for assistance. The council members shifted uncomfortably. You denied us. Some of you said it wasn't your problem. Others claimed non-interference. A few admitted you were afraid of the Korvath. So humanity stood alone. And we nearly died, alone. Kate's voice grew stronger. But we survived, not because of your help, but because we helped ourselves. While the Korvath destroyed our visible fleet, we were building a new one, in secret. We sacrificed thousands to maintain the deception. We fought with outdated ships to hide our true strength. And when the time was right, we struck. She activated a holographic display. It showed footage from the Battle of Earth. The Korvath fleet, massive and unstoppable. Then the arrival of the Dreadnoughts. The systematic destruction of the enemy. The council watched in silence. The Korvath dominion is broken, Kate continued. Their empire is falling apart. Their high commander is in human custody. And all of this was accomplished by the species you called weak and primitive. The species you refused to help. An alien representative stood. Ambassador Brennan, we understand your anger, but the council is prepared to offer reparations. We can help rebuild. Thanks for watching. We don't need your help, Kate interrupted. We don't need your money or your technology. We've proven we can stand on our own. But I want to make something clear to this council and to the galaxy. Humanity will never forget how you abandoned us. We will never again trust our survival to others. And the lever and the larm. We will never forget have something well. We will never forget how you abandoned. And the lever and the larms and the larm. What are you saying? Another representative asked nervously. I'm saying that humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We will pursue our own interests and defend our own people. We will trade with those who wish to trade fairly. We will form alliances with those who prove themselves trustworthy. But we will never again be victims. And if anyone threatens Earth or human colonies, they will face the full might of the Terran Dreadnought fleet. The council erupted in argument. Some species protested. Others demanded Kate reconsider. But she simply gathered her materials and left the hall. Her message was delivered. Humanity was done begging. Back on Earth, General Ben Carter watched the speech broadcast with satisfaction. He had known about Project Dreadnought from the beginning. He had been one of its architects, along with several others in government. The hardest part had been keeping it secret, watching good people die while knowing help was being built. Ashley Webb, the young engineer who had uncovered the truth, now worked for him as an intelligence analyst. She entered his office with a report. General, the second wave of dreadnoughts is ahead of schedule. Admiral Alex Warren reports another 400 ships will be ready within 6 months. Good, Carter said. And the T-Tangent-class super dreadnoughts? Construction has begun on the first 5. They'll be 3 times the size of regular dreadnoughts, heavily armed and armored. If the first wave impressed the galaxy, these will terrify it. Carter nodded. The galaxy had learned that humanity could fight. Soon they would learn that humanity could build an unstoppable war machine when properly motivated. At the Memorial for Fallen Soldiers, thousands gathered. Admiral Morrison stood with other veterans, watching as the names of the dead were read aloud. So many names, so many lives lost. But their sacrifice had not been in vain. Admiral Cross gave a speech. They tried to break us. They tried to end us. Instead, they forged us into something stronger. We are humanity. We endure. We adapt. We overcome. We will remember those who fell. We will honor their sacrifice. And we will ensure that their deaths meant something. Never again will humanity be caught unprepared. Never again will we be victims. This is our promise to the fallen. This is our gift to future generations. The crowd stood in silence. Then, slowly, people began to clap. The applause grew until it was thunderous. Not celebration, but affirmation. Humanity had learned its lesson. The galaxy had created a monster when it abandoned Earth. Now, they would have to live with the consequences. Years later, children would learn about the war in schools. They would study the Battle of Earth and the arrival of the Dreadnought fleet. They would memorize the names of heroes like Morrison, Foster, and Cross. They would understand that humanity's strength came not from never falling, but from always getting back up. The Korvath Dominion became a footnote in history. Other species looked at Earth with new respect and fear. Trade agreements were signed. Defense pacts formed, but always with the understanding that humanity would never be dependent on others again. Captain Nicole Foster, now an admiral herself, commanded the 3rd Dreadnought Fleet. She patrolled the frontiers of human space, making sure the colonies were safe. When pirates or raiders appeared, they were dealt with swiftly and decisively. The galaxy learned that attacking human interests was not profitable. On Haven, the secret colony that had built the first dreadnoughts, life continued. The shipyards never stopped working. New technologies were developed. Better weapons designed. Humanity had tasted defeat and would never accept it again. Admiral Morrison, finally retired, sat on his porch and watched the sunset. Ships passed overhead, heading to distant stars. Human ships, strong and powerful. He thought about the desperate days when defeat seemed certain. He thought about the message that had come from the darkness. The fleet awakens, and he smiled, knowing that humanity's children had come home, and they had saved the world.